ye brave knight.
Oi!
Lest you wrench the sword from the stone. That's bad. That's dumb. Oh my god, it's dumb. But hey, here we are, fucking back, and we're doing some Arthurian shit this time. We're back after another not so long hiatus, slight hiatus.
Yeah, it's not been too long.
No, it ain't. It's not. Just when you thought you could finally unsubscribe from us because we're not releasing content. Nope. We kick back, kicking and twitching and flopping around on the operating table.
There we go.
Yeah. So yeah, the bad, fantasy speech I was trying to push at the start of this is alluding to our choice this week here at Far Out Flicks, which is The Green Knight.
The Green Knight.
A24's most recent film. For those of you.
I loved it. I'll just go ahead and say that.
Yeah, I loved it too. I'm actually really excited about this episode. It is the first A24 film. Wait, shit, no, they did The Lighthouse, didn't they?
They did.
Fuck, it is. So. It's not our first A24 film. Back that up, people. But either way, I think it's like a little bit of a deviation from like most A24 films that I have enjoyed, and I've enjoyed pretty much every single one of them. In that this one didn't make my anxiety levels kind of like clip the entire time from start to finish.
That's hilarious.
Yes, this was a much more peaceful. Not that Midsommar doesn't have some peaceful parts to it, but
Sure, but the whole time there's the anxiety of like what's about to happen.
Exactly. Versus this, which I feel was a pleasant deviation. So tip of the hat out the door to A24 and David Lowery for this film. Yeah. So we don't do a lot of fantasy either, and fantasy is like pretty far out.
Fantasy's awesome.
Yeah, I guess like Zardoz is like kind of almost fantasy.
Well, Zardoz is fantasy for sure.
It's sort of, or it's sci-fi, however you want to dice it. I mean, that's like a weird, it could be either or kind of situation.
True. I mean, sci-fi, fantasy, the lines are blurred at times.
They certainly share a similar looking fan base, if not outright the same. of which I'm part of that fan base.
Yeah, exactly. And The Green Knight.
Although I think we're just talking. I'm down 35 pounds, people. I'm looking good. I'm looking svelte.
You're about to get kicked out of the podcast world.
What?
You're not fitting. You're not fitting our image. We have a brand here, Andrew.
All right, you are literally like Chris Farleying me right now, and that's not okay.
I don't even see Cheeto dust on your shirt. What are you doing with your life?
Oh man, I'm more of a Doritos dust kind of person, if I'm going to be honest. But anyways, we're talking about chips over here.
The Green Knight is, yes, it's our first movie that is in the traditional fantasy of world of like castles and knights and dragons.
And like specifically the subset Arthurian. So it is derived from like King Arthur's tales. To be more specific, it's the legend of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Am I saying Gawain right? I feel like
I believe it's
Gawain.
I think they call him Gawain.
Gawain?
It's more like
Gawain. That sounds better. That sounds way better. Gawain. Gawain. It's fun to say.
Had you actually read that story? I don't believe I have. I mean,
no.
I have a lot of interest in mythology and stuff like that, but I have not gotten into the Arthurian legends at all, really.
Outside of like watching, I feel like Sam Neill was like Merlin in a series or a movie, I think called Merlin.
Okay.
And that was pretty cool. I think it's Sam Neill. Let me fact check that before I sound like an asshole. Sam Neill, Merlin.
I don't think anyone cares.
It's a mini series, and yeah, it was Sam Neill. Dude, you know how much
that.
I love Sam Neill.
Yeah, that's true.
We got to do another Sam Neill movie.
We will. There's plenty.
So outside of watching the miniseries as a kid, and I guess kind of having that little bit of exposure and some other.
Well, everyone knows The Sword and the Stone.
Yeah,
whether
exactly.
It's from the Disney movie or whatever.
I think there's another mini series. And I don't know. King Arthur's been done a lot in the video media realm.
I definitely read Beowulf. I don't know if that's from the same time period or
It's not.
what, but
It's older. And it's not Anglo. Is it Anglo-Saxon? I think Beowulf is more like Scandinavian.
that's a good question.
No, it's Old English too, but it's of a Germanic heroic legend. So for whatever that's worth, I think it's older though.
I believe it is, but it's similar themes, I guess.
Correct. I guess with like the major difference being, well, I guess there is no major difference. I mean, there, in my mind, I just kind of think of like Beowulf is all like Norse like, but perhaps I'm all wrong in that. Gosh, I mean, so yeah, to be clear, guys, not an expert on this particular subset of nerddom.
No, we have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, so we're gonna stumble through a lot of this,
But I like castles and wizards and stuff, so I'm down with it.
and I did some research, and we're not going totally into this blind, even though it sounds like it right now. So, King Arthur, as history currently states, was like a completely fictional character. He does not exist per our big brain modern time archaeological digs and study of texts, yada yada yada. Basically, it's just like a folk legend, almost. So yeah, did like a little bit of research, so I can at least to some extent talk about Sir Gawain in the Green Knight, which is what this film is based off of loosely, and I guess how the film differs. But whatever, we're not here to talk about old literature and reading. We're here to talk about a movie. So, I don't know, Braid, why don't you start us off? Like, what'd you love about the beginning? What thoughts?
So, honestly, when I first saw the trailer for this, well, I wasn't as hyped about it as you were. You're the one who told me about it.
Insisted
trailer-
that we do it. I think we
Yep,
had an
exactly.
almost argument over it.
I didn't want to pay $20 to rent this.
I
Just
know.
wait. No, it was worth it though. Maybe.
Yeah. I mean, if you're watching it alone, maybe not. But like,
It'll be on Hulu soon.
oh fuck, it will be on Hulu soon.
It's okay. We had to get there first before
Yeah.
the masses record their Green Knight podcast. But
Yeah.
but my first impression when I saw the trailer was the aesthetic was similar to Game of Thrones, like a dark medieval fantasy thing, and then the Green Knight himself, who's kind of like a tree ent creature almost. He
You-
kind of looks like the Night King from Game of Thrones a little bit. It's a little like just, I was like, they're just cashing in on this, but I didn't actually connect the dots that it was an A24 film, which I know they make cool artsy movies. And I was pleasantly surprised when I watched it. Absolutely.
To make well, before we get off the Game of Thrones, to make one additional connection point, Guinevere, sorry, which is Arthur's, woman, King Arthur's woman in the film, is played by Kate Dickie, who was Lyssa Arryn in Game of Thrones.
Okay.
The lady who was breastfeeding her like 14-year-old or whatever.
Yep. Oh,
yeah.
man. Yeah, she was good in that.
Yeah, she was. She was good until, she got kicked out the sky door or whatever.
Yep, that was awesome.
Or was
But
it
That's a good one. Check it out. Game of Thrones if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, oh, sorry to spoil Game of Thrones. One, dude, fuck it. The ending's bad. You don't want to watch it anyways.
If you
Like,
haven't watched it by now, you're doing it just out of like doubling down on your previous. It's become part of your identity and you're never going to watch it.
well, I mean, that and like famously they blew the ending.
Yeah.
You know,
But
to to the point that no one rewatches it. So
I will say this: if you're thinking it's like Game of Thrones going in, it's really not. There's not a whole lot of action. It's more symbolism and
highfalutin camera work, lots of highfalutin camera work.
yes. And also another thing I want to point out is I watched this in the daytime and I don't have curtains, so there's a glare on the TV.
Oof.
And this film is very dark. Like every shot is just really, really dark. Not a lot of bright colors. And I could see probably like 1/3 of the movie I was just staring at a completely black screen. Disclaimer.
Jeez. Imagine not having a fucking curtain to hang up, or like a bed sheet, dude. You could have like tacked a bed sheet up or something.
Dude, I got like 8 windows in that room.
Dude, just newspaper. Look like a fucking crazy person.
So full disclosure there. But honestly, so the movie, it starts out, it's King Arthur's court. I don't know exactly. I'm not going to go scene frame by frame because there's just too many cool, like, weird shots that some matter and some don't. But at the beginning, they're in King Arthur's court, right?
I would say we see like Gawain kind of like wake up and, you know, he's sleeping out somewhere, stumbling. He was partying the night before, presumably. His mom,
Yes.
when she sees him, brings up that he's drunk, and then he goes and
He's
joins.
crashing at Mom's house.
He goes and joins King Arthur and his knights at the Round Table in his mother's stead. His mother doesn't come that day, which
Gawain is King Arthur's nephew.
yes, with King Arthur's sister being Morgan Le Fay, the sorceress. So that is Gawain's mother. Anyways, so he goes, and there's like a little scene where King Arthur, you know, invites him to sit beside him, and Gawain, you know, is very humble and says, like, you know, he's not worthy, essentially, to make it real quick. And King Arthur, you know, insists that he does anyways, and tell him a story of his greatness or something he's done. And Gawain again says, well, I you know, basically have none to tell. In which King Arthur replies, or rather, Guinevere replies, and, you know, basically like encourages him to go out and do something.
Yes, and then it's implied that up to that point, he's just kind of a bum who just like chases women and lives in his mom's house.
He's a philanderer and a drunk.
And basically not living up to his noble kind of lineage.
Correct.
He's not a knight. He's kind of like a kid, almost.
Yeah, so Q, like, they cut over to his mother, Morgan Le Fay, and she, like, blindfolds herself and, you know, basically performs this kind of, like, spell, this pagan spell ceremony thing where she, like, writes a letter or whatever, and you put it together, like, she's basically summoned the Green Knight, and the Green Knight, well, maybe, I mean, that was what I got from it, at any rate.
Interesting. I didn't pick up on that. I was like, what the heck's she doing?
So the Q entering the Green Knight, which is this big tree knight, this giant tree plant looking knight guy with a, you know, root beard or whatever, and he comes
a giant axe, and he's on a horse, right?
Yeah, and he comes in and hands a letter, which is like the letter that Morgan Le Fay is burning in her spell, and Guinevere reads it, and, you know, basically issues the Christmas Day game challenge. And it's like, you know, whatever knight wants to face me, if they land a blow 1 year from today, they have to meet me up north at the Green Chapel, and the blow will be returned to them, whether it's a nick on the cheek or a cut of the throat.
Yeah, this is the crux of the whole film, basically. This game that the Green Knight wants to play. So, but basically, and then he says, who will challenge me? Who wants to play this game? And Sir Gawain volunteers. I think at this point he's saying, this is my moment, you know? This is my time to shine and do the right thing and be the hero, which he had never been up to that point. And you're kind of wondering at this point, is he going to kill the Green Knight? Is he going to cut his cheek? And interestingly enough, the Green Knight just kneels down, lets him strike him, and he cuts off his head.
Oh, and whoever does this, if he draws the first blow, gets to keep the Green Knight's badass axe.
Yes. And then the Green Knight, you have to go find the Green Knight 1 year from now, and he's going to do the same blow to you. So, honestly, it was interesting. I mean, obviously, this is the legend, and we can try to like dive into it and pick it apart, but it is interesting that he chose to kill the Green Knight. I think it was just he thought that was his moment to be the hero.
Yeah, like the kind of like brash foolishness of a young man seeking greatness, trying to show off in front of his friends.
Yeah.
The exact thing a mother probably would hope a young man wouldn't do.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not a mom,
Kind
but
of a
like,
foolish decision, arguably.
yeah,
Not one about self-preservation, at least, because, I mean, a year from now, then Green Knight's going to chop his head off.
yes. So the Green Knight rises back up, now decapitated, grabs his head, hops on his horse, laughing, and gallops out, basically saying, you know,
See you in a year. See you next Christmas.
So a year passes by, and A24 does, you know, they kind of did the same thing in The Lodge, which if you haven't seen that, it's a super fucking cool movie. But
I
they
really liked that one.
they do these transitions with like in The Lodge of, you know, a dollhouse version of The Lodge or whatever, especially
Yes.
earlier in the film. And they kind of do the same thing with a Punch and Judy like reenactment.
Oh, yeah, that was a nice touch.
And Punch and Judy is a puppet show that was popular in Shakespearean England, where, you know, if you've probably seen something of it in your lifetime.
Slapstick, basically, with wooden puppets with wooden heads.
Yeah, very violent. A lot of the times.
But so they keep like cutting into this scene of like a bunch of children watching this puppet show, where Sir Gawain cuts off the Green Knight's head. And then ominously, they like, after 1 year has passed, just to kind of, they are picking up the anxiety at this point. They're like saying, oh, it's coming.
Yep.
Then they show the puppet, the Green Knight, coming back and cutting off Sir Gawain's head, and the kids are all like mortified. Pretty good scene.
Yeah, you know, got to give the kids the violence. So a year passes, and basically Gawain now has to set off on this, you know, quest. His girlfriend-ish thing kind of asks him not to. I think his mom gives him the green sash, which she tells him as long as he's wearing it, no harm will come to him. And then King Arthur also encourages him, even though Gawain's being like kind of a fucking wiener about it. King Arthur's like, is it so wrong for me to want greatness for you?
Right. He's got to do his duty. He signed up for this. Now he's got to go do it. Begin his hero's journey, essentially. And up to that point, even in the year that has passed, it seems like he didn't do much. He's just been anticipating this moment. Then he sets off out on his quest. And then, of course, you know, trials and tribulations follow.
Yeah, so the first, I guess he comes across like a battlefield, and there's a bunch of dead people everywhere. It looks like everybody just killed everybody and left the dead to be taken care of by nature.
And then that kid pops out. He's good. He's in a bunch of movies. I'm trying to Barry Keoghan.
Yep, that's the one. So, you know, he offers kind of to give the knight guidance on how to get to the Green Chapel. Kind of gives him directions and asks for something in return, and the knight gives him a coin. He flicks him a single gold coin or silver coin. I don't know, whatever kind of coins they used back then, and then kind of rides off in that direction.
And then soon after, he just gets jumped by a bunch of guys, and that kid pops out again, and he's like, "It just wasn't enough."
So yeah, yeah, you didn't pay me, which is like a thing, right? Like if, you know, some beggar kids hassle you somewhere, don't give them a shitty tip. You know, you might get jumped later.
That's true. That's true.
It is true. You know.
They'll definitely find you.
Yep. So, yeah, he runs into the thief, or not the thief, the kid. I guess grave corpse robber. I don't know. They're not really graves, but it is a grave site.
He's credited as scavenger, which makes sense.
Well, I'm going to call him a grave robber because that's really what I feel is more appropriate than scavenger.
Fair enough.
Scavenger sounds pretty churched up to me. You know, it's like he's in the woods getting mushrooms. Nah, this dude's picking over corpses.
Yeah, he's picking corpses.
He's picking corpses. So they show up, they tie him up, and he has, you know, pretty much all of his stuff stolen from him. He has the green sash taken, the axe is stolen, and they leave him for dead. And I really like this scene. This is like one of the few, for me, anxiety-inducing scenes. Is the camera like does this 360 like pan basically, so it goes from him like tied up, does a 360 pan, and when it like works its way back around, he's a skeleton. But then but then it reverses, and like I really like the lush green colors. Like it was almost like the moss was kind of glowing, like a almost psychedelic effect, but like understated enough that it wasn't as in your face as like a Midsommar kind of thing. You know, just kind of like a fantastical shimmer almost.
That was a cool scene, kind of like foreshadowing, like this dude's about to be dead.
I also think it could be like him seeing, you know, like making peace with it or something, and then like snapping out of it, you know, and that's when he's like, okay, if I can just make it over to that thing.
I have to complete my journey.
Yep.
Yep.
So even though he was, you know, perhaps a little too frugal and unkind to the less fortunate, Gawain lives to make it through this trial.
Yes, and then he basically is able to get free and is chasing them.
Yeah, to no like avail though. He doesn't catch him.
So then that's basically his first trial, you know, if you could say he has 3 trials, right?
Yeah, which seems
the second trial. So that night he arrives at this old cabin and falls asleep in a bed, and then he's woken up by this ghost of a woman called Winifred.
Yes.
And Winifred, I believe, what is it? There is an old myth, Saint Winifred, I believe, that this is basically alluding to. The story is she wanted to become a nun, and her lover at that time like didn't want her to, so he cut off her head. And then I think the dad put it back on her body or something.
Did he like tie it up with a green ribbon or something?
I'm honestly not sure. I can't recall it that well. But something similar happens in the movie where she says, "Look, my head's in a spring nearby, and I need someone to retrieve it," which is interesting because she clearly has her head in the scene. But then, you know, that's his next quest. He's got to go get her head out of this river.
I really liked the scene of Gawain swimming to find her head. You know, again, this would be like another minor anxiety tweaking, like just enough for me to like it. You know, but not so much that it's like uncut gems and I just I'm on that, you know, grinding my teeth the whole time. But like the red, man, the red like water that he's swimming through to find her skull, like it's a simple effect, but I think it goes like a really long way in like tone and mood setting.
I mean, the editing and direction of David Lowery, that's like what he's best at, I feel like, is those cool like little scenes that just add effect.
Yeah, a detail about his like editing, the scene with Morgan casting the spell in the Green Knight took 1 year for him to edit. He spent a year editing that scene.
That's insane.
It is insane. But it turned out really, really good. Gawain retrieves the skull and like brings it back up and very gently places it on now where her he'd slept in her bed earlier. He'd like shown up all tired and weary and broken. and slept in her bed, and that's when the ghost approached him. Now, when he returns, there's a skeleton in the bed, missing its head. So he like very gently places it on a pillow, and is rewarded with his axe.
Yes.
Somehow, the axe is back.
Yeah, so he's passed 2 trials now. Seemingly, he's on his way to becoming a knight, and he's acting gallantly, finally, for the first time, I guess you could say, by helping these strangers. And at this point, a weird fox shows up, which I didn't quite... I mean, I got some ideas about the fox, but I didn't totally get what the fox symbolizes. The fox, like, kind of becomes his friend, and...
I think the fox, I think the fox is his mom. I think it's Morgan Le Fay guiding him through that.
Oh. Interesting. I had not thought of that at all.
And
but it kind of makes sense because
yeah.
we'll come back to the fox.
Yeah, we'll come back. But he has this little kind of magical fox that's very dog-like and friendly, and it kind of runs around with him. I believe he he gets inside and like a cave at one point and eats some mushrooms out of like desperation for hunger, and then starts like puking,
vomiting. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like has like a little kind of like psychedelic moment from his cave mushrooms.
Yeah, that was an interesting choice.
It was no altered states cave mushroom scene, but you know, like
right. He still had to throw that in there, though.
I did. That was kind of forced, but whatever. Did we pull altered states? Is that even available anymore?
That was our first episode, and we have removed it.
Ooh, paywall
because
coming.
I was too drunk. I was too drunk.
He was way too drunk. Whatever.
It's
it was
fine.
golden memories. Again, paywall sooner or later, you know, or you know, a Patreon donation.
Which we have not set up.
Yeah, you couldn't even do it. We got Venmo though.
We do have Venmo. We'll take direct Venmo payments.
But so he eats the shrooms and he pukes, and like he goes out with the fox, and there's the scene with the giants.
Yes.
That was cool. I mean, that was really trippy.
That was really trippy.
And it's like, is that like a product of the mushrooms, or are there actual giants?
Because isn't he like on like a cliff, and there's these giant like nude women statues like in the ocean?
Yeah. And they're walking, and he asks them to help him, and they like reach to grab him, and the fox protects him.
Yeah, I thought those were kind of like, I thought that was an illusion of like sirens almost.
I mean, it could be sirens, it could be giants. There are a lot of, you know, legends of giants as well. In you know, more fantastical writings.
Sure.
Or it could just be hallucinations from him eating fucking cave mushrooms. But either way, the fox like protects him, which is like another detail that I think alludes to it being Morgan Le Fay accompanying him.
Right.
You know, and when she does it, the giants like back up, or when the fox like gets in between them, the giants stop reaching for him. So it's like,
yeah.
you know, like if it was just like a normal fox or whatever, like why would they be scared of it? They wouldn't be scared of it at all.
Very interesting. No, your theory does hold up.
But I think because it's like the pagan witch Morgan, you know, like she's in touch with things and can communicate with the giants if they are real and not just a prolonged mushroom trip.
She's what do they call him in Game of Thrones? A droog? Isn't it something like that?
The people who can freaking
like a brand
possess animals.
Yes. It doesn't matter. Cut
I
this
don't.
out.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck they're called, but
Something like that.
I've already pushed it out of my head, man. It's gone. As I said, I'm not happy with how the series ended. It's dead to me. But anyways, he eventually reaches a castle where he is greeted by a lord that tells him that the Green Chapel is super close, and he invites him to stay because he's got 5-6 days until Christmas, so he can rest up for a couple days and then go meet the Green Knight, um, fully recharged. How you would want to be if you're gonna fight a magical green giant knight.
Absolutely. Or if you're gonna die the next day, might as well get a good night of sleep first.
You might as well.
Or stay out all night. I don't know. Partying. I don't know.
That's not the knightly way.
We still don't know if he's a knight yet.
I guess we're still. He's.
We'll,
He looks like a knight. He's pretty
but
knight.
is he gonna pass the test?
You're
This
right.
is like, I feel like this is all the test of his knighthood.
Correct. I would agree. So basically, when Gawain accepts it, he makes a deal with him that every day he'll go out hunting and he'll give it to not Gawain, in exchange for whatever he gets at the house that day. So more or less the lady of the chapel starts to or not the chapel, the lady of the castle starts to make moves on Gawain.
She's making moves.
And she looks like his girlfriend from the start of the film, and is played by the same character,
Yes.
or same actors. So she makes seductive moves on him, and at first he doesn't cave, but eventually she jerks him off or something. I don't know.
That part is really weird. So she gives him the green sash, the green girdle. She gives it to him and tells him that she made it herself. But it's actually the one that he lost earlier when he was robbed by that kid and his gang. And then next thing you know, he's just coming all over it.
Yeah, he's holding the green sash and it's just soaked in jizz. I mean, he wrings the jizz out of the fucking sash, man.
That's a lot.
It was, dude, it was a lot, man. It was a whole lot. It was a whole lot of cum.
So basically, I mean, and in this regard, she's been trying to seduce him this whole time. He has kind of succumbed. He didn't do the knightly thing. He's banging the Lord's wife.
But he looks over after he, shoots his shot, and there's an old woman that was sitting at their table earlier who's blindfolded, and now she's standing in the room, looking in his direction. But it's the same style blindfold that his mother, Morgan Le Fay, had donned when she cast her spell at the start of the film.
Yes.
So it's again, I think the overarching theme is Morgan Le Fay has created these trials to test her son and to get him to rise to the level of to be a knight, and to be worthwhile. And this is her, seeing him in where his honor has been tested. Now in the original story, the way this all transpires is, the lady of the castle makes a move on him, and the first day he, refuses her advances except for a single kiss, which he accepts just to get her to go away. And then the next day it's 2. And then on the 3rd day, she gives him the sash that'll make him basically invincible, more or less.
It's no one can hurt him if he's wearing that.
So on the 3rd day, when the Lord comes back, he gives the Lord 3 kisses, as opposed to giving the sash. 1, because he wants to be invincible, but 2, because it would also, I guess, give away that his wife had been making moves on him.
Interesting.
So there would have been other women in the castle in the Arthurian legend. It wouldn't just be the lady. So it could be anyone kissing him. And the stipulation was whatever you receive while you're here. Which brings us back to the movie where on his way out, the lord of the castle stops him in the woods and asks him, was he going to leave without basically saying goodbye or exchanging their 3rd round of gifts. Right. And he lies to the Lord and, does not tell him of the sash that he got back, which is a dishonorable thing to do.
Yes.
the Lord then, and in the movie, this is the only time this happens, basically makes the move and kisses Gawain, and in exchange gives him the fox that he had caught in a trap earlier, and the fox is still alive. A lot to like break down in that scene, you know. At least
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, he had a moment of weakness, you know. He basically didn't act knightly in this part of the trial.
correct at all.
He lied about the girdle, didn't give it to him.
He let the lady jerk him off.
Yep.
Into
Which
the
right after that, she basically says you're no knight and just like leaves. So that
Yeah.
must not have felt too good.
No, that probably felt real bad. You pervert. But
Oh God.
and then like there's this scene where, you know, is it like the Lord sexually favors him, or is that just? I mean, it is definitely an allusion to the original story, but like, you know, I don't know what's going on there. If it is, it's like a very off note because like they don't really touch on it again.
I mean, what was there? What was the deal? He would exchange. The Lord was gonna give him whatever he hunted for whatever Gawain found in the castle.
Yeah.
So I think maybe like, I don't know. I'm not really sure.
Well, so the Lord says, "You may give me a kiss," right? And like he does, and then he gives him the fox.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I don't know. That one's.
so I don't know. You know, not that there's like anything wrong with that in any way, shape, or form, but it's just an unanswered question.
In this movie, that's every little detail is some symbol.
And is it like,
Definitely.
is it the implication that like, you know, he was leaving the lady of the castle untouched because he liked men, and that's why she was making moves on Gawain? You know, I don't know. I like to think that it's just a trial, especially with you know, the old lady with the blindfold.
Right.
So he and the fox, you know, go off, and then he basically finds like a little boat on a little creek or small stream, and he's gonna take that to get to the Green Chapel. And the fox jumps in his way, and using a human voice, basically begs him to abandon the quest, saying that, you know, there's more than just like valor and honor to life, and that, you know, if he goes, he'll be a dead man for sure.
Yes. Correct.
So he goes, makes it to the Green Chapel.
So this is after you just said the part about the fox, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that part was a little intense. The fox. Yeah.
And you're right. I'm getting ahead of myself. I think that like is really the final brushstroke of saying like the fox is his mom.
Right.
And that like it's a mother pleading with her son not to go do something foolish, not to see this through. Like it was foolish enough already, but now you're taking it another step. And if you do this, you're meeting a violent end for the sake of machismo, essentially.
Sure.
Which is,
you know, if a journey is laid out before you, you got to take it though. But I think that ultimately, yeah, I mean, that's just that little voice in his head or his mom or whatever just telling him, you know, you could still do the cowardly thing and just bail.
so yeah, when when Gawain gets the night slumbering, hibernating, whatever, he eventually awakens, and Gawain assumes the position on the ground, ready to have his head lopped off. The Green Knight like prepares to do it, and Gawain flinches. He starts again. He flinches again.
Which
and
he's
then,
not supposed to flinch. I mean,
no, he's
part
being,
of being honorable would be just to take it like a man. It's kind of
and
presupposed.
he's got the sash on this whole fucking time, which is supposed to prevent him from getting hurt anyways. And then on the third one, he tucks tail and runs outright. Goes all yellow belly on us and flees, and we get to see kind of his life play out of him returning, becoming knighted, presumably because he lied about, you know, what his endeavors were. He never takes
I
off.
believe he ultimately becomes the king, right?
Correct. You know, he has it.
Because he's wearing the crown, and he's like a despised king. Like, basically, that act of cowardice, like, essentially haunts his character. You know, it's like a bad karmic load that he's carrying, and it seems like even though he becomes the king, it kind of implies that like people don't like him, and he's kind of a failure, and he keeps being dishonorable.
At the end of his life, so he has like a son, and he raises the son, and with Essel, but he doesn't let her like stay in the picture. He pays her off with gold as he yanks the baby from her hands.
And then he hooks up with. He takes the. Then who does he hook up with? He hooks up with someone else after that. It's the Baron, the Lord's wife, right?
No, he hooks up with a different woman altogether.
Oh, I see.
Which would be just titled Gawain's Young Queen.
I gotcha.
Played by
who?
Megan Tiernan. But yeah,
Gotcha.
he beds a younger wife, and she bears him a daughter, and we just see like
Also, kind of, you know, not considered the most honorable, especially back in the 13th century.
the daughter.
Or just everything he does, you know? Like, he's like essentially unfaithful, betrays everyone.
I mean, they did that shit all the time, man. I don't know if that was a societal
that's
hang
a good
up at
point.
that point.
But it's not part of romantic chivalry, you know what I'm saying?
I mean, I guess they are Christian, and like divorce had not been made a thing yet. But at the same time, like Essel would not have been a noble lady, so that would have been like him knocking up, you know, just a village girl. And as a nobleman, like that wouldn't work out because they did have stupid, you know, rules about that. About
Right.
you know. So either way,
What I was thinking when I watched this scene was The Last Temptation of Christ. Have you ever seen that movie?
I haven't.
I think it's Martin Scorsese, but it's super good. Willem Dafoe plays Jesus. It's super
Sweet.
good. You have to watch it. But basically, spoiler alert, Last Temptation of Christ, at the end of that movie, he also sees, like, it's Jesus about to be crucified. He also, like, has this vision of basically he runs away and marries a woman and has a family, and that's the Last Temptation of Christ, which was considered blasphemy by many Christians who tried to boycott the movie or whatever.
Well, people are always going to boycott. But
Similar theme, though.
Yeah. So he marries the noblewoman, you know, has a daughter with her. His son from Essel dies in battle. Like, he literally watches his son die with his guts hanging out. At this point, yeah, Gawain is like a shit king. Everybody hates him. I guess it's implied, like, you know, they're losing a war. The castle's under siege. And he takes his green girdle off, and his head falls off as if decapitated. I like this a lot for a number of reasons. To me, it draws a connection, you know, whether or not like this is the basis point, but I think I read somewhere that it speculated it is of like the story of like the girl with the green ribbon or whatever, the kind of like campfire ghost story. You know, the girl has the green ribbon around her neck, and she takes it off, and the head falls off.
Interesting.
Have you ever? I mean, it was. I'm pretty sure in Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Yeah, okay.
If not, I don't know. I've seen various versions of that ghost story over the years, so I like that kind of connection.
Sure. Well, it almost seems like maybe in this ending, he essentially was not touched because he wore the thing. Well, I mean, he kind of runs away, but it's all just surface level, you know? The second he takes the, what's it called? The girdle off, his head falls off. Like, it was all just... Inside, he was already just a failure or a half man or something.
Sure, and just that magical thing is all that kept him together. And at the same time, again, this is a vision. So he like wakes from his vision, still kneeling on the ground, and right before the knight swings the axe, he rips the girdle out that he had secretly tucked under his like garments or whatever, and he tells the knight he is ready. The knight praises Gawain for his bravery.
Yeah, he's basically like, you passed the test. You're good.
Yeah, you did good. Like, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yep, you did
Um,
it. You did it.
and then he's then says like, now off with your head,
Yep.
leaving Gawain's fate unknown, which we'll put on pause for 2 seconds because there's a post credit scene and we're going to talk about it more. I did want to talk about the literary works endings.
Yes.
So in that ending, basically Gawain does not do the honorable thing. Instead, he faces a challenge with the girdle, and the Green Knight mocks him and just gives him a couple nicks on the cheek for, not going through it the right way. But then when Gawain like apologizes and shows like, I guess, disdain for his actions, basically the Green Knight's like, "Oh, it's all fine. You're blameless like anybody. It's understandable that you did it, but like let this be a lesson or whatever." And he goes back and has a happy fucking ending. Like,
Interesting.
the rest of Arthur's round table wears green sashes from that day on.
To honor him.
Yeah. I like this ending a lot more because it's up in the air. It could be either, he does get his head cut off and he went into death doing the honorable thing, and that's better than the life of cowardice and the kind of pain that, possibly getting that bad karma universe unlocked as opposed to
that is a theme that we've all faced in our lives, though. Do you take the shortcut or not, or whatever? Do you do the noble thing or not?
yeah. And the
And is it
director
rewarded or not?
the director said, maybe he did die, maybe he didn't. Like his head comes off, but like this is a magical fantasy world. That doesn't mean that he necessarily died. And but he also said that he wanted Gawain getting beheaded to not be a bad thing. Like going into it, but doing it honorably was not a bad ending.
That
Like,
makes sense to me because ultimately he did, if say he does the right thing, he gets his head chopped off. He does his part in the universe.
Yep.
Or he doesn't, and then all those bad things happen. His son gets stabbed up and whatever, It's basically he would have been punished for not doing the right thing
and
regardless.
I think the credence that like gives to him living. Another detail is that this is the game, the Christmas game, and at the very beginning, Guinevere says, "Remember, it's just a game,"
It's just a game.
which like he takes the game too far in that minute, but like I think it implies there's just kind of like a degree of magical. It'll be okay. So I don't know.
It's
That's
just
like
a ride.
yeah, that's less strong to me. But I do think, per my opinion, I think Gawain lives.
I think so. I'm there with you. And then the post-credits scene kind of suggests that when you see his daughter from the fantasy where he ran away and continued to live and had kids, you see her walking along and she picks up the crown off the ground and puts it on her head, which
So-
kind of suggests maybe he lived, right?
Yeah, and so again with like Morgan casting the spell and summoning the Green Knight, like I think all of this was a test made by his mother to like give him a path to greatness. It's what every mom wants for her child, right? Like for her kid to go out and do like the honorable and good thing and the right thing and the brave thing in face of and not like dumb bravery, right? Like rushing in and cutting the Green Knight's head off is not good bravery. That was
Almost contrary to your theory, though. So she created this challenge, but then she tried to stop him from going through with it,
I think that was possibly another temptation, right? Like trying to give him the easy
interesting.
way out or put it in his head even.
Yeah.
And I think to an extent every mother would like want to dissuade her son from putting themselves in a situation where they might be in harm's way. But like I
Sure.
think every single mother given a situation where their child was in like harm's way, like they would want their kid to act bravely. So it's like, no
Right.
mother wants their kid to die when
it's a
you know,
conundrum
like
almost.
when like in a house fire or whatever. But like, you know, if your kid was to die in a house fire, but he like saved several other people in the process, well, like, you know, that's about as good as you could hope for.
I mean, I'd imagine being a parent, it's like you have to find the balance of sheltering, but also no one grows if they don't actually go out into the world and face these challenges on their own, you know?
Yeah, and so I do think that this was all like a fabrication of Morgan Le Fray's kind of like vision for her son to help him grow, to test him, to you know, maybe teach him in the process, you know, what it means to be an honorable man and to be a great man and to be a knight. Uh, and also, like, I just think the Green Knight's kind of like tone and facial expressions when he says "off with your head" don't look like that of somebody who's about to do harm to the character. You know?
No, it seems kind of like he's fucking with him a little bit to me. It's
Yeah.
and the whole time he's kind of been messing with them, you know? Kind of from the beginning.
But I do like that it's ambiguous and not totally like, you know, in your face that he survived, because it leaves you, the reader, a lot of opportunity to take away from it what you will, and for us to talk about it at length here at the end of the podcast.
Exactly. Now we can get into our interpretations.
Yeah, so you can kick this one off.
I mean, the Green Knight, obviously, he's green, kind of made out of a tree, somewhat representing nature, but there's also a Grim Reaper aspect. So, you know, it's kind of like the inevitability of all nature that we must die, but that's also a part of life or whatever. I mean, green could represent life, but also he's coming for him. After that year is up, he's going to cut off his head, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that is some like existential kind of reckoning that, yes, we are a part of nature and part of life. Part of that duality is death.
I think there's some paganism versus, you know, the new Anglo religion of Christianity as well, with Arthur's knights. And, I mean, this really like goes back to the literature as well, but I say literature, the fable, the legend of King Arthur. But you know, King Arthur's knights embody all the Christian ideals and norms, versus, you know, there being some different values for pagan groups. And I like in the story, Morgan wanted to basically test King Arthur's virtue to see like really how brave and virtuous they actually are.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I think over on the surface layer of it all is just the classic hero's journey story. Like, think Star Wars, you know? He got tempted when he was asked to come to the dark side with his father and all of that. And I mean, essentially, I mean, that is kind of what makes it work as an entertaining story arc. And I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, we're talking about an extremely old piece of literature from the 13th century. The reason it has survived so long and still resonates so much today is just because of how poignant is poignant the right word?
That works. It plays.
How much it still applies to our lives, you know?
How applicable it is.
Yes.
Well, guys, like I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Unless you, Braden, you got anything else you want to say about it?
I mean, not too much other than I mean, this one's a challenging film in some regards, I would say. It's 2 hours long and it's slow and kind of artsy, but the meaning and the themes and all of that just really will kind of stick with you. And I'm still thinking about it days later. I want to
Same.
read the old story now.
Yeah, I really, just with like any A24 film, but this one especially, I think was very beautifully shot. The camera work was fantastic. Other than that, though, I mean, like I feel like we did justice, man.
I want to see the director's other films now. I don't know if you've seen any of them.
I actually haven't.
I haven't either, but I've heard there was a lot of anticipation for this film, and it's because his other ones were so popular. I believe one is a ghost story, which I really want to see because I've heard good things.
Okay, so I actually have seen A Ghost Story.
Is that good? Worth watching?
It is good. It's worth watching. See anything
Nice.
else?
I mean, I think he works on a lot of film sets, doing a lot of different things, but maybe hasn't directed that many feature films.
He's also been in a few films and acting roles as well. A Ghost Story being one of them, but one that he did not have any other technical credits in.
Can I say that he looks like the most intense hipster I've ever seen?
Oh yeah, I mean, as a fellow bald man, I get it. You know, you gotta have something to show the ladies, some follicles to work with.
Yeah, he's got like a curly, almost like strongman mustache, but he's like a skinny little hipster guy.
He does kind of look like a strong man, like a
Like a classic, like Carniac strongman.
yep.
It's a good look. It's a
It
good look.
is.
I can see how that would get you some indie cred
Oh,
in
for
the
sure.
scene.
All right.
Right
Well,
on. Well, it's been fun talking about this movie.
yeah, this one was fun. It was fast. It was quick. But I think it was a worthwhile endeavor.
Yes. Check it out if you haven't seen it. It'll be on the streaming services for free in no time, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably like a week since we.
I mean, it was
since we both
interesting.
paid for it separately. We double
Yes,
rented
we
this.
did. And I mean, on that subject, kind of, I mean, how do you feel about at-home viewing experiences versus the theater? Because I've always kind of said I'd rather, if you have a widescreen at home, why not do it at home where no one's talking? You can drink a beer, eat your own snacks, hang out in your own environment.
I love going to the movies. The movies is like a very special, nostalgic part of my childhood, my early dating years. You know, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of
Sure.
like fondness regarding memories in movies. However, the last time I went to a movie theater, and granted, I do want to go see something in theaters again soon, but the last time I was in theaters, I saw Sam Raimi's The Grudge in Columbia, South Carolina, the theater out by that fucking shopping abomination off I-26, west of Columbia, whatever the fuck that place is called. And it was the worst movie experience I've ever had in my life. Like, it was almost every single person in the theater was talking, and it was
That
full.
sounds awful. I'm sure The Green Knight is not like that.
It was a really bad movie. I love Sam Raimi, but I'm just gonna say his re-envisioning of The Grudge was one of the worst horror movies I've ever seen. And like, I not like bad and fun, like bad and why did I pay $14 to see this shit? And I'm pretty sure the couple beside me were fucking jerking each other off the whole time. So
Sounds about right.
at home,
I mean,
at home viewing's not all bad either.
One thing I've kind of come around a little bit though, because one thing I've noticed watching all these movies at home is that I get distracted more easily.
Yeah,
So
you can pull the phone out. You know,
I'll
you
stop them, put them into chunks. I'll be eating or whatever, not paying attention as much, which I think that is part of the movie theater experience is you are locked in. There's nowhere to go.
Yeah, very true. You know, unless you go and it's full of people who don't have any fucking decency at all and talk through the whole thing. But on that note, Flickers, before I sound like too surly of an old man, thank you guys for joining us this week. As always, you know, like, subscribe, comment, send us an email, tell a friend, and we'll see you next time.
Check you later.
Check you later.